smoking gun after some time we received word Dr. Levengood. The sample I had sent by FedEx had been analyzed. Blood. The sample appears to be pure hemoglobin like that found at the cattle mutilation sites with what appears to be segment rods in the blood. Never seen anything like it. Skin. Looks like segmented grass except it's not grass. Levengood proved to be an odd person to interact with. But then again, who isn't in the UFO world? In the beginning, after the introduction facilitated by Captain Robert Collins, he was very excited to receive my materials. There was somewhat regular correspondence by email. I was kept in the loop with everything that was going on. I had increased my public presence through the internet and through alternative radio shows like Coast to Coast. The presence of the Greys continued. There were regular attempted abductions. The marks on my body and Joyce's body continued. I occasionally had an animal destroyed. But over the years it was so intermittent, it isn't worth calling a regular occurrence. Another person I met during this time, introduced to me by Captain Robert Collins, was a man named Daryl Sims. Sims billed himself and still does as the UFO hunter. I know, you can't make this stuff up. The world of exopolitics is more bizarre than the freak alley in the old Barnum Bailey circus. He still maintains an active presence in the UFO world through a website called Alien Hunter. Think you've had alien contact. Are you puzzled by unusual physical marks, missing time, strange dreams, or even x-rays that your doctor doesn't understand? If any of this is keeping you up at night, then maybe it's time you called Daryl Sims, the Alien Hunter, the world's leading expert on alien abductions. His 38-plus years of field research has focused on physical evidence and led to his groundbreaking discoveries of alien implants and alien fluorescence. As a former military police officer and CIA operative, Sims has a unique insight to the alien organization which he believes functions similarly to an intelligence agency. Sims is also a compassionate and skilled therapist and certified master hypnotherapist who has helped hundreds of alien experiencers all over the world come to terms with what they've witnessed. Like so many people in the UFO world, you have to ask yourself where Sims is coming from. Time and time again, you are greeted by a half-in and half-out person, people with former intelligence or military intelligence connections, retired or as close as one can be to retired when you come from that world. They seem to be the dominant genus in the exopolitics world, and there's not one of them who is telling everything they know. The one exception that comes to mind is the ex-Canadian Defense Minister, Paul Hellyer. He is a grand statesman of the exopolitics world and the highest-ranking government official in a NATO country to go public with the UFO phenomenon. The rest of the crew, the Americans, are an assortment of people with mixed motivations, and many times I wonder if they're really in the UFO space to help people understand what's really going on or to continue a kind of cover-up of what's really going on. Perhaps I'm being a little tough on them. There is also the case of the person who wants to do the right thing, but they are constrained by a non-disclosure agreement that they signed while they were in the military or the intelligence world. At this time, and this was the later years of the first decade of the new millennium, Sims was all over my tissue sample story. He was liaising with Dr. Levengood as closely as I was. We were all anxiously awaiting the results. The last correspondence I had with Levengood had him stating the following: "You have the smoking gun. This is proof of alien life visiting Earth and links the phenomenon together positively. All of my actions as it regarded the disclosure of what was going on at the ranch, including the physical evidence that could prove my claims, and the investigation by Bigelow's people, most of them former FBI and CIA, and all the other evidence I had gathered over the years I had been living on the ranch, were accumulating to a prima facie case that the extraterrestrial presence on Earth is real. To some people, I might sound a little paranoid, a little underwhelmed in the manner I went about disclosing what was going on at my ranch. But you have to realize it had been years of strange visitations at the ranch, both off-world visitations and strange, cryptic, deceitful human visitations. I told Levengood I wanted to be in control of all press releases related to the sample results. By the end of June 2011, after a couple of years of dealing with Levengood in the lab, he told me in phone conversations that he might never write a formal report, adding that he was very excited about the samples, which contained tiny segmented fibers that were not cloth. Levengood explained that blood does not contain segmented fibers. This made my sample highly unusual. He also explained that normal antibodies that are positive or negative determine the type of blood. The samples I gave him were something totally different. He called it a very peculiar case because the cell parts looked like joint grass, but were not grass. When I asked him why he didn't send the tissue out for DNA testing, he said there wasn't enough material, and it was very expensive. I believe Levengood was threatened. In every step of my journey, there has been some shadow I cannot see. The most direct manifestation of it was the men in black floating through my gate and walking down my laneway. And of course there were the shots taken at me. All the time I was dogged by the shadow. I often wondered why they didn't just kill me. Maybe they had calculated that doing that would make my story explode, create a kind of UFO martyr out of me that would garner more attention than they wanted. I really can't answer any questions that pertain to the force that was working against me in my attempt to make the world know that my ranch was having alien visitations. Sims tried his best to get Levengood back on track. He even went out to Michigan to make a personal visit. It was then that I heard through Sims that Dr. Levengood had died. He was quite elderly at the time. His death was extremely understandable. However, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just another bizarre occurrence in what had been a decade and a half of bizarre occurrences for me at the ranch. I might also add at this juncture, for those who think I am being a bit paranoid, the Skinwalker Ranch was bought by Bigelow, who in my estimation is in cahoots with the government in terms of the see nothing here, nothing approach to UFO disclosure. And the Bradshaw Ranch was literally requisitioned by the federal government and taken over with a perimeter fence all around it and armed guards. I was the last of the 3 desert hot spots in a direct line from Utah down to Rainbow Valley, and I was the only one still in private hands and looking to disclose publicly what was going on. So if I sound paranoid to you, remember that you have not walked a single step in my shoes. You have not dealt with the kinds of people in the exopolitics world. You have not dealt with the government. You have not dealt with the gray aliens, and you have not dealt with the men in black. I didn't give up with Sims. The UFO world is full of people who want to be the ones who prove that aliens are real. I sometimes wonder, though, if that is real. I sometimes get the impression that people just like to live in a reality where they believe in UFOs. Or maybe I'm being too hard on these people and myself. There is a tremendous human need to be part of the group. Government knows this very well. In the absence of government support in the UFO world, the collection of unorganized human beings are left to their own, and it becomes a kind of pre-modern anthropological experiment. Human beings do not organize well. As much as the hippie types want to believe that we can live without authority and centralized leadership, in my experience it's very difficult. Most communal forms of living not centered on a strict religious code, whether it be an ashram in India or Mennonites in the United States, fall apart. And the UFO world is no exception. There is more backstabbing Roman-style politics and high drama than a Colombian soap opera. It's like a microcosm of everything that's wrong with the human race. This is unfortunate. UFO visitation and contact with the human race is, in my opinion, the most important event in human history, aside from the visitations from spiritual persons who come to teach us. And in many cases, even these people may have extraterrestrial connections. Unless stars can move on their own, The Star of Bethlehem that appeared when Christ was born was a UFO. The main problem in the UFO world is the jockeying for position as an authority and the various classifications of people. It runs the gamut. You have academics who do very good work like Rich Dolan and John Mack, PhD-level research and organization into a competent and well-sourced presentation. The academics are well liked in the UFO world, but they burn their reputations in the normal academic world, making themselves laughingstocks. Just look at what they did to John Mack. He was 6 months buried, and his work at Harvard was overturned by the young upstart Susan Clancy, who returned abduction to the field of human repressed memory of childhood trauma, completely negating the reality of the experience and relegating it to the world of psychiatry and a non-functioning brain that cannot allow the human consciousness to experience the full childhood trauma in adulthood. So not too many academics come into the UFO world. I should be clear and point out here that when I say UFO world, I mean the world presented by unorganized human beings who are not getting paid. Another class of person in the UFO world is the contactee. A contact is somebody who is contacted by a benign UFO race, and by benign I mean a race that doesn't want to eat or kill us. They are viewed with fascination but tremendous skepticism. Another group of people are the abductees. These are people who are taken involuntarily by a hostile alien race who do not respect human autonomy. The final class of people in the UFO world are our clandestine government people. The government loves to plant people in the UFO world. There is more disinformation spread about UFOs by the government than any other kind of information coming into the UFO world. The largest and most successful organization in the UFO world is MUFON, which stands for Mutual UFO Network. They bill themselves as follows. MUFON is an all-volunteer, nonprofit 5013 charitable corporation and the world's oldest and largest civilian UFO investigation and research organization. Our goal is to be the inquisitive mind's refuge seeking answers to that most ancient question. Are we alone in the universe? The answer very simply is no. Whether you have UFO reports to share, armchair UFO investigator aspirations, or want to train and join our investigation team, MUFON is here for you. Won't you please join us in our quest to discover the truth? Because these groups are organized by volunteers, they always have money problems. Such is the case with MUFON. They went through an experience in which Robert Bigelow tried to take them over by influencing the organization with money. If it were not for the threat of resignation from the senior people who had been at MUFON for years, Bigelow would be running it today. Based on my experiences with him, I do not think that would be a step forward for the UFO world. Dr. Levengood died before we could sort out going public with the tissue sample. Nobody in his organization, which was only a half-dozen people or so, took over his initiative. I didn't have the money to send the sample to a DNA lab, so the dead alien remains an unaccepted reality in the larger UFO world. Where's the proof, I can hear you thinking? I know what you're thinking because I have the same thoughts. In the UFO world, the experiencers live in two worlds. One world is the world of experience. We experience things that normal people do not. I apologize for using the word normal. There is no normal in the human experience. I need to use a word that creates two groups. Forgive me for calling non-UFO experiencers normal. I use the word because it is the common world, the world of living your life, the world of reading newspapers in North America and Western Europe, the world of watching our news programs, documentaries, reading books, the world we share by common means. This is the common human experience. From this common human experience, you're thinking, why didn't you call the government with your tissue sample? Why didn't you send samples to more than one lab? Why didn't you call newspapers? Why did you wait so long to send a sample out? And do you really expect me to believe that after all of this Dr. Levengood just didn't care anymore? The simple answer is no. I'm not asking you to believe anything. I am telling you the way things happened. I am also telling you that there are reasons why things happen a certain way in the world of exopolitics. It is one of the most surveilled, controlled, and feared groups on the planet. The exopolitics community, especially in the United States, has been for decades watched more closely than any terrorist cell in the world. Why? Why do things disappear in the UFO world? Why do people suddenly get cold feet about going forward with earth-shattering news? Why does evidence go missing? Why did a drunk driver drive up onto a sidewalk to run over John Mack while giving a lecture in London? Why do the abductees have their memories wiped? Why would the next academic at Harvard to publish on abductions after John Mack completely and utterly contradict his work? Why have so many of us met these men in black? Yes, it's true. It's not just me who met the men in black. Many of the people I have interacted with have also met the men in black. I stood up to them. I don't have the fear gene. I'm stupid that way. My wife Joyce has been harmed in horrible ways because of the decisions I've made. I have to live with that. People in the UFO world have been murdered or silenced with threats against their family. I can hear you thinking, you think we live in a world that is run fairly. You think we live in a world with full disclosure. You have been conditioned to think that way. You have been mentally controlled to think that way. Your entire life is a drama put on for you by people who get paid to do it. The disparity at present between what our governments know and what the general population knows is so great we are like two different species. The general public is Neanderthal man. The government insiders are the Homo sapien. It's a dangerous place for us to be. The Neanderthals did not fare well. Even the way I speak to you is compromised. I have no choice. The metaphor I used is factually incorrect in the non-normal world I live in. In the world I now live in, human beings were seeded on this planet. Evolution is part of the fairy tale that has been told to you. So in using the metaphor of Neanderthal man and Homo sapien, I am bridging the normal world and the world I have been pulled into through my experiences at Stardust Ranch. The gap between the world and the transgovernmental insiders is so great now that we run the risk of being wiped out and having them start a new version of humanity. Now I can hear some of you thinking I'm paranoid once again. What kind of a group of human beings would wipe out billions of people to start a new civilization based on science that only they know, given to them from extraterrestrials, and not shared with the rest of the world? The answer is any kind of people. If you look at the history of the human race, the history that is somewhat true, most of our research and advancement has come from military inventions, or from inventions that came out of military funding. The moment one country, people, or region of the world surpasses another part of the world in any tactical way, the result is always the same. The tactically superior humans decimate the tactically inferior humans. The superiors take over the land and the resources of the inferiors, and very few of the inferiors are left living. This is what we did to the natives in North, South, and Central America. They survive in Central and South America in healthy numbers because the Spanish conquistadors had difficulty chasing them through the mountainous jungle areas. It wasn't the easy kill of the American Indians on open desert areas like Arizona and long flat plains like the prairies in Canada. We pretend to be sorry about it now, centuries after the fact, but it's still a complete lie. We don't do anything to really help the native populations. Our position is assimilate or die. It's not just a technological superiority that produces these results. Muhammad did the same thing with the Quran. This was the new consciousness technology in that region of the world, and those who did not comply died by the sword. The same thing with the Gospels. The Vatican was the backbone of all European exploration. It could not have happened without the support of the Vatican. You never hear that where they went, the consciousness technology of Christianity, which the Europeans viewed as superior, was meant to replace the indigenous way of thinking and believing. Of course, the natives did a lot more than believe. They were experiencers of the transdimensional reality that human beings live in because they had not been conditioned by a rigorous school system that commences at the age of 5 and an indoctrination process to wipe out the imagination. And they had been led to plant-based consciousness separators like ayahuasca, peyote, and mushrooms. I think you understand what I'm trying to say. The sudden expansion of consciousness does not always produce a loving person. The example of the highly evolved human beings who have come into this drama on planet Earth to try and teach us is not the norm. The normal result of a sudden expansion of consciousness and the influx of extraterrestrial contact and technology at the government level since World War II has been a sudden expansion of consciousness, usually results in the new Superman killing the old normal man. This is where we are now in the early 21st century. It's one of the most dangerous places we have ever been as a species. We have to try to understand what is happening on our planet. It's a matter of life and death.